So right now what we're doing is we're having this webinar, and the way webinars work is that we've got a special panel on our computer, and people who are listening and watching on their computer at home can see the presentation that Claire Gray is giving right now. And right now he's talking about a lady from Oregon who was on the state mandated insurance program and was denied experimental chemotherapy treatment by the state, but she was told she could have her physician-assisted suicide paid for. So he's talking about that. He's going through and he's doing his entire presentation. While that's happening, we have people who can ask questions online, and we can answer the questions for them as they're asking, just typing in the questions like, if the Supreme Court rules that the bill is unconstitutional, what is our next step? And that answer, which I'll type in, is that we have to make sure voters know what the consequences are through presentations like this, so that when they go and vote in November, then they're going to vote to make sure that we get people in office who are going to stick to our Constitution, repeal this law, and also who are going to get our budget under control as well. And so we do webinars like this every single week with our local coordinators, and it's how we make the decisions about what we're going to do, what issues we'll take on, what actions we'll take on with every single thing that Tea Party Patriots does. Tonight we're doing this special webinar, and it's open to anyone who wants to participate, not just local coordinators, so that they're able to participate if they couldn't make it up here to DC yesterday, or if they're not going to be able to make it up throughout the rest of the week. We just want to make sure that they feel like they're a part of this process, even if they're not physically in DC. And then we have with us sitting here right now, we've got Kelly Carrender, who's been doing her work today on our legislative update. She does these every single week, and today you were focusing on the Obamacare. Do you have anything you want to add about it from today?
Just that we've got a bunch of different stories and links and articles and new information that's coming out. Like the Institute for Justice, they filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court saying that really the Supreme Court just needs to look at contract law. There's 500 years of contract law that says that contracts can only be entered into voluntarily. Nobody can be compelled into a contract. And so forcing people to sign up for an insurance policy is basically signing a contract with an insurance company. And if we are being compelled to do that by the mandate, then that contract is invalid. So there's a lot of good stuff. A lot of people will be able to use it on their own blogs, send it out to their own local coordinator or other local coordinators or their group members, and hopefully it'll help them to get the message out to the people in their community that Obamacare needs to go, and it needs to go now.
And then also sitting with us, we have Sally Oljar. She's one of our national coordinators, and she worked on today, one of the things she worked on was getting all the information about what you're allowed to do for the Supreme Court, outside of the Supreme Court, and the timing of the hearings.
Yes. I went through and checked the schedule for the Supreme Court to see what time the hearings are starting, and discovered that this is the longest scheduled hearing for one case since the 1960s. To schedule 6 hours for oral arguments is very, very unusual. So as Vice President Biden points out, this is a big effing deal, even for the Supreme Court. But they also have pretty strict rules. It's a very quiet and dignified place, so I wanted to let people know what they can and can't do outside on the grounds in terms of making chanting and making noise, and what kind of signs you can carry and that kind of thing. So I've been working on that today and putting that together and getting it out to all the people on our email list, and it's particularly aimed at those who can be here, who can come. But I've also included information about listening to the audio broadcast of the arguments tomorrow afternoon on C-SPAN at 1 o'clock Eastern.
When we do these webinars, right now we have hundreds of people participating on it, and it takes a lot of coordination to do this. We have to make sure that the people who are asking questions and have comments, that they're able to raise their hand. That's what it's called in webinar speak, which means it gives us the opportunity to mute and unmute them so they can ask questions. And as we do this every single week, we have a moderator for the webinar. That's Kevin Mooneyhan. And he launches the webinar. He pays attention to who's raising their hands. He mutes and unmutes people. And he basically runs the whole technical aspect of the webinar as Kelly and I are taking questions and running polls and doing the other aspects of speaking and doing the program for the webinar. The GoToWebinar system will accommodate, sometimes we have really small webinars with just a handful of people to go over something where we need to share a screen. And you can have webinars with as few people as 2 or 3 people. Generally, our local coordinator webinars have about 200 people or so on them. It sometimes goes up if the issue is really hot, and it sometimes is lower if we're kind of in a lull. And then we, on tonight's webinar, we have a couple hundred people who are on, and they're participating, and I have a feeling that many of the people who are on tonight have never even been on a webinar before. It's one of the first times we've done this where we've opened it up not just to local coordinators, but to any of our supporters. So in a minute, I'm going to have to go check my email and see if anyone needs technical support. All right, so now on the webinar, Dr. Gray is still talking. It's this presentation that he gives is so emotionally compelling. We showed it to our local coordinators on Thursday night to get their approval on it, and we kept getting email after email from the people who participated saying that his presentation is chilling. It really just punches you in the gut at an emotional level, and I encourage everyone to be able to listen to it, to watch what he has to say, and understand just how important it is that we maintain the power over our health care, and that we do not relinquish this power, and we do not let the government take this power away from us. And I'm here to tell every one of you that Tea Party Patriots is going to stand by you, and we will get this bill repealed. One way or the other, this law will be repealed in its entirety. And since you're watching this on YouTube right now, you should be able to go and watch the webinar in its entirety by going to teapartypatriots.org or going to roadtorepeal.com. And we're going to be posting a recording of the entire webinar up later tonight or over early in the week so that people can watch it and hear the presentation if they missed it live tonight.